notification.
Okay, because that's published.
I'm going to wait until you see a video of his screen. Okay. I'm going to adjust the screen a little. Take care of that now. JC is already here. Already got 5 logged in. 6 in. Good. Alright, 11:20 or so on my clock, so thanks for tuning back in. We have a presentation about to start. It's Dustin Lunau from Joplin Fire Department. He's got a presentation on stress and emergency services. So hopefully everyone found time for some lunch, or at least got to a dinner table somewhere, warmed up to your favorite bowl of chili or pizza or soup, whatever you're doing. So appreciate y'all tuning in again, and be ready for this presentation. And I'm going to hand it over to Dustin. Here you go. It's all you.
Well, good morning for a little bit longer, I believe. My name is Dustin Lunau. I am the new Assistant Chief at Joplin Fire Department. I'm in charge of the EMS side for EMS training and registration, all that fun stuff. I appreciate the opportunity to come out to Newton County here with Mr. Prosser and talk to you guys this morning. I'm going to be asking several questions, so I know it's a little bit of a different online forum. So please, man, send the questions in, send some information in as we go through this. I appreciate you bearing with us as we move forward together. So I have a lot of a different information, kind of a different approach to what I'll be covering today. In reality, it's not something that's covered a lot, and it's not something that we talk about a lot in emergency services in general. Paramedicine, EMT, fire, you name it, it's just not something we talk about. And the whole goal of this morning's presentation is just to start the conversation. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just broach the subject, start the conversation, look forward, look at ways that we can work together and figure out solutions to the problems that we have at hand. So a little bit about myself. I am again, the Assistant Chief of Joplin Fire. I previously worked at Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I worked down there from 2003 until just this last year. Broken Arrow is the largest fire-based EMS system for the state of Oklahoma. We have 7 stations, 7 ambulances, 5 engines, 2 ladders, all kinds of fun stuff. It's a busy place. It's about 120,000 people. We run a lot of calls. Originally, though, I am from here in Joplin area. I graduated Carl Junction High School, to which I really enjoyed it. Now I'm back in Carl Junction. My kids are going there now. They like it, I believe, anyway. I worked at Carthage. I volunteered at Carl Junction for some time as I got certifications together. I worked at Carthage for several years before going down to Broken Arrow. And I'm glad to be back home. I'm glad to be back where all my family and friends are, and where I can honestly make a difference. I want to be able to take what I've learned and the experiences that I had, and see if I can share those and maybe make a difference for somebody else. It's a little bit different going from a street position, a command officer position, to more of a desk or training position, but it's a great opportunity to affect change in those that are directly related to patient care. Because if I can set other people up for success, well, then we all win, right? Because I'm fully convinced that we win together, or we will lose together. So hopefully we'll do the first. So I'm going to call this presentation a reality check. Hopefully you can bear with me. And again, if you have any questions, send those questions in. I'm fully convinced that everything happens for a reason, but I love this sign. Sometimes that reason is you're stupid and you make bad decisions. And that is a lot of what we do in our job, right? I've heard all kinds of fun things from, poor decisions or stupid people or job security, all kinds of things. But I want to focus that more on ourselves, not really what we're doing out in the field, but how we're taking care of ourselves. So, previously, 20 years ago, when I started this venture, it was you're going to be fine, suck it up, don't talk about it, you're fine. But we'll get there. I'd like to know why everybody got into EMS in the first place. What led you? What made you start that? A lot of times we can go through our career and we'll get off focus of where we're headed, what we're doing. What did we originally join? What was that reason we joined? Sometimes we need to refocus and really take a minute and think about what is the underlying reason we started this, and why do we do it? Why do we continue to do it? Why did you become an EMT? It's a great question. Why did you become an EMT? I started this journey. After graduating at Carl Junction, I spent the next 2 years wasting my time at Missouri Southern. Not a shot at Southern. I just didn't know what I was doing. I finally walked away and went down to Oklahoma City. My grandmother lived down there, and I stayed a little bit with her and helped around the house, around the farm, and did whatever I could. And she said, "I've got something for you to do. Be over here. Give me an address tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock." So I went, and I had forgot over the years that all of my uncles and all their family were Oklahoma City firefighters. So I went and I rode the day with Oklahoma City Fire Department, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I really did. It was just so intriguing to me. So I immediately went back and enrolled again at Missouri Southern. I got my firefighter 1 and 2. I went and got my EMT. And then after hiring on to Carthage, I was fortunate enough to have a captain, which is actually Chief Roger Williams now, who was, he set me on the fast path to able to get my paramedic holding on duty. He really did. He helped me out quite a bit, and I really appreciate that from him. So I went and got my paramedic, and I ended up, I was Curtec taught. He's a good guy. We didn't teach how to treat people. We walked in the room and healed them, right? Their shadows fell across them, we healed them. So, why did you enter EMS? Was it because you watched the show, The Old Emergency? A lot of guys are going to know exactly what this is. This is a little bit before my time. But maybe it's The Old Emergency. It's the good old times, right? You didn't have to wear gloves. You were safe no matter what you did. What was your save rate then at emergency? It was great. Maybe it was Rescue 911. This is the one I remember, right? You growing up at home, and this would come on in the evenings, and you'd sit down and you'd watch all these riveting shows about how everything happened and what worked well. And I remembered back to that, as I was sitting going through school, and I really enjoyed watching those shows. They were great, weren't they? But what led you to become a paramedic? I mean, you were dumb enough to become an EMT, but then you made the decision to go further, right? Why did we do that? I'd love to hear some of your comments on that one. I honestly, I'll use a word to be honest, I became a paramedic so I'd be a marketable firefighter. And that's just right down to it. I wanted to be in the fire service, and the best way to get into a big department somewhere is you got the gold patch. And so that's what I did. Along the way, I fell in love with it. I really enjoyed the ability to make those patient contacts. Some of the best calls I can remember would be set beside an elderly couple or a little old guy and listen to just stories. I mean, you hear stories from World War II, Vietnam, and you're just in awe of these people. These are amazing people, and then to have the opportunity to make a difference was great for me. So yeah, I probably didn't get into it for the right reason. I just want to be a better fireman, right? But over time, I've learned that really it is a great calling to have.
Did you see that? One joined because chicks dig us.
Nice. Absolutely. I also joined single, and now I'm married. So that's got to tell you something. That absolutely. If you're single out there, there'll be somebody at your station, somebody at your office that will help you. I actually was called into the chief's office in Carthage. It was Chief John Cooper, and he set me down as probably my second year there. And he said, "Son, I want you to do something for me." I said, "Yes, sir. What is it?" He said, "I want you to be at this restaurant this night to meet this girl." I said, "Chief, I don't need help. I'm fine." I stood up, and he looked at me straight face. He said, "At what point in time did you think you had an option?" I immediately sat down and said, "Yes, sir." And I went that night. 8 months later, I married the girl. So that's just how it happened. It works out the way it works out. That was 18 years ago, and 4 kids and a couple of mortgages. But anyway. So, for the new paramedics, you may have been Paw Patrol. I want to make sure I include everybody. I know there's got a lot of new paramedics out there. My kids like this. You may still like this also. I've seen some of you work, and this is more fitting. I'm kidding. So, exactly what were the save rates for these shows? We have Emergency, we have Rescue 911, Paw Patrol. That's a great save rate right there. What was it for Emergency? 60% of the critical patients? Maybe 30. I depended. What episode was it, right? If it was, it probably would have made very good TV. What about Rescue 911? 80% save rate, maybe. I don't know. What they show us? How many times did they actually lose a life on those shows? In all the seasons that they were on the air, how many times did that happen? Well, it never happens for Paw Patrol. I've watched this a lot with my 3-year-old, that they actually have a very high save rate. I'm pretty impressed. I didn't know dogs could do that also. So, what is the reality? Was that reality? Was the shows that we grew up on, the things that we were taught, the things that we were told, was that reality? Sadly, no, it wasn't. So, according to the Surgery of Trauma, the American Association for the Surgeon of Trauma, the United States accounts for roughly 3 million trauma-related injuries annually. We do a lot of this, right? We go out on all the MVAs and all the fun stuff. We do a lot of the trauma calls. Unfortunately, that also relates to about 150,000 trauma-related fatalities. Again, was this what we were told we were getting into? How about the American Heart Association? This is their recent update. The cardiac arrest study for between 2016 and 2013. The numbers are deceiving. Let me flip through here so I can give you the exact numbers. I didn't have them memorized, I apologize. Those numbers in 2016 accounted for roughly 350,000 arrests. That would be our red column, right? Unfortunately, that was 308,000 fatalities, only 42,000 saves. 2015, 326,000 arrests, 291,000 fatalities, and roughly 35,000 saves. Was this anywhere near what we were showed on TV? I don't know if I would have been showed this in school, I may have rethought what we were doing, right? Wait, you're only going to get an 8% save rate? I want to say it was 12, but actually a viable patient was actually 8. So yeah, and we've all seen that. We have a save, and of course it's not really, there's no quality of life left. It's pretty much over at that point. But it is roughly close to 8% was the average through the years. 8% save rate. I spent a lot of time getting my paramedic. It wasn't my thing. I wasn't the big biology major, so it was a little more of a challenge for me. I've learned through the years, but there's guys at paramedics it is a breeze for. That wasn't me. I spent a lot of time in books. So 8%, not what we signed up for, I don't believe. So here it is. I like old quotes. If you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. I think that's a great quote from hit it once, hit it again, come back and hit it a third time. So here's the point I'm going to make. We were lied to. Weren't we?
Yeah.
Were we told this? I think we were lied to. Or maybe we lied to ourselves, which is probably more true than anything else. So what are actual results? What are the results of what our ingoing thoughts were, what our ingoing perceived or preconceived notions were of what our job was going to be versus what it actually is? What's the reality? Well, unfortunately, the reality is it's turned out to be a 5 to 7 year career span for a paramedic. That's national averages. It depends on who you look at, on what study you find. It's 5 to 7 years. So I know working in the Tulsa metropolitan area, IMSA is the large service there. I'm glad if you want experience, you go visit IMSA. If you want a career, you go somewhere else. Their average is 3 to 5 years. They run their people and run their people and run their people. I did my clinical rotations at IMSA. I'm not trying to take a shot. I learned a lot. We ran calls all the time. It was not a problem getting all my patient contacts in running with IMSA. However, as far as careers go, I was fortunate to work for a fire-based EMS system. So I got a break off the truck every now and then. I'd get off the box, get on the truck. Well, usually about a half the year or so. Well, actually it's less than that, but still. I was only running roughly 800 calls annually, where these guys are running thousands. That was just me. I kept track of the numbers because I thought it was kind of cool to see what I did over my career. And in my busiest parts, it was right at 800 calls annually that I had made, as far as on the box. So, but this is the reality. This is the reality. We have preconceived notions going in, and then we have the reality check right when we get in. The real result here is what I'd like to kind of point some things out on this. We've all talked about PTSD and the effects of it on our personnel, but we have a preconceived notion about PTSD, especially with military, especially with things we've seen in the news, and we think it is triggered by a terrifying event. And I made that bold on purpose because that's talking about a singular event, where that could be some type of a mass casualty incident. And for those in this area, obviously, we talk about the tornado. Obviously, I wasn't working here at that time. However, I was here that night. We'd come in to see family, so it was It was a long evening, and it was a long couple of days. I did not see it like you guys saw it. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be of more help, which is very frustrating. But you have symptoms, recurring unwanted dreams, anxiety, depression. There's all kinds of things that go with this that are not talked about because, you know, we don't have this. We don't talk about this in public. We don't talk about this around the kitchen table. We don't talk about this with our peers because obviously there's something wrong with you if you start showing symptoms, right? What they're now finding is that the more common cause of what we're experiencing in that 5 to 7 year burnout rate is continuous exposure to stressful events. They're now terming it prolonged duress stress syndrome. It's more of a cumulative disease process. And that is what it is. It is a disease process, much like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, anything else that can be suffered by emergency services just because of the extra stress that we go through. This is a disease process. There's, like I said, I want to start a conversation today. The symptoms are same as post-traumatic stress disorder. We have got to get this up in the air. We have got to start talking about this in order to protect ourselves and protect the people around us. Right? When we're taught, when we go through school, it's all scene safety, BSI. Who's the most important person there? Me. Who's the second most important there? My partner. Right? The patient was a distant third. And yet over time, that's not proven true. We haven't actually done that. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, and maybe a lot of you are familiar with this. Jim's had a survey that went out. The article was published September 25th, 2015. And it was a wake-up. It was really a big wake-up call. They thought that they were going to go out and get a little bit of feedback. They thought, 300, 400, 500 people. And when the survey was published, they came back with over 4,000 that voluntarily supplied information for their survey. I would like to see some bigger surveys, and I'm sure they're being conducted currently. But what I really want is I want some answers. I want some programs available. I want some things that we can actually address together. Again, let's start the conversation. So what they found, and this should be completely alarming to everybody in emergency services, is that as far as EMS providers were concerned, the rate for suicide contemplation was almost 30 times that of the general population. 37% compared to 3.7%, right? Excuse me, that's 10 times. I can do math. Suicide attempts, 6.6% compared to 0.5%. That is not acceptable. How have we got to this point? How have we come this far? How have we treated our people like they're cannon fodder, dispensable, disposable, and replaceable? That's not okay. I'm now in a position that I can actually do something about it. I think this is a great idea. I think we're actually conducting a survey with Joplin Fire Department. It's an anonymous survey. We're looking to see what type of issues are out there with our personnel, whatever it might be. Because if we're truly concerned about our people and we're there to make sure that they're safe and healthy and have a long career and enjoy retirement, then we need to address these issues. We need to figure out what the problems are. Much like offering health and wellness programs, this should be right along. There should be no difference in our programs, but this is completely unacceptable. So what's the answer? Well, what's that look like for everybody? Again, I'd like to open the discussion. I'd like to see exactly what people think the answer is. There's people out there that will say, well, this is the definitive answer. You need this type of counseling. You need just to be able to come back and critically debrief. I've been on a lot of calls. I've seen a lot of death, like everybody here has. They came back to the station. You guys doing okay? Yeah, I guess we're okay. Anything you want to talk about? Everybody looks at everybody, and that was the end of it, right? That was your critical incident stress debriefing. Or they would bring somebody from outside the agency, and they would bring them in, and then, of course, nobody said a word, because it's usually some person that has not a clue what we deal with personally. They have no idea what it's like to pronounce a toddler, to tell their parents the baby's dead. They have no idea what that takes, the toll it takes on us. And so we view that they are outsiders, and we don't relatively share our feelings or share our thoughts, because we're tough, right? We don't need this. So what is the answer? Well, we're going to have to learn to develop healthy coping mechanisms. This is something that we're not taught in the field. This is something we're not taught in EMT or paramedic or reoccurring education seminars. We're just not taught this. This isn't the focus. We want to focus on the patient care, right? Well, news. We can't take care of the patient unless we ourselves are first taken care of. So what could those be? Exercise, And a lot of studies say, yeah, exercise. If you're more fit, you're more you deal with stress better. That kind of goes with healthy eating habits, which makes perfect sense as you're mowing down fast food on your way to the next call in the ambulance, right? Yeah, because we've all been there. I've eaten 3 meals in a single day in a truck. I think my busiest truck is we had 17 transports in one day. It was a crazy day. I'm not even sure how we did that at this point. And I do know the gentleman that was driving that day, he came back 3 shifts later, and I had my second busiest day at 14 transports, and I told him I would never work with him again. So maybe we need a healthy hobby, something we can learn to release stress on. I like turning wrenches. I like working on cars. I probably spend way too much money on stuff. I like to drive fast. I like to go fast, and I like to build stuff that is, I want to scare small children and elderly people with it. So that's what I like personally. Whatever you like, whatever that looks like, find something that you do enjoy doing. Because what we turn out is we find that over time, we're frustrated, we're upset, we're just done. We're ready to get off work, but then what do? We go home and we never relax. We never let go. There's never that downtime because something is always running in our head. We've got to figure out how to fix that. Support groups, maybe church, friends, clubs, whatever that looks like. Obviously, everybody's different. There's not one magic pill that fixes everybody's high blood pressure or everybody's anything. Everybody's completely different. And there's no 2 people in this room or even online that think the same. That's just not how it works. So it's going to be different for everybody. We want to cover that one up because we don't want to talk about this because you have to have really something wrong with you, right, to have some type of counseling. Well, that's crap. We need to talk about being part of the solution. When I started, you sit down around a table, you need to talk about something, you had some old guy saying, oh, come on, shut up. You're just a weenie. You're a new guy. F and G, whatever. You're this, you're that. You can't do that. And he would just berate you until you finally did shut up. And you learned to build walls and all that stuff. And the wall works for a while, right up until, and I call it the inbox. Everybody's got an inbox. You start sliding stuff in there over time. It works great. You file it away, you forget about it. But one day, the inbox becomes full. And it will not take anything else. And it's that next call, whatever it is, it doesn't matter how small, how stupid, or how severe, and the whole thing, your whole world blows up. And you're like, what do I do now? It's my inbox theory is what I call it. A lot of people will build walls, right? We build the wall, that's work, this is me, nothing ever gets through the wall. And that was me. I did that. I did that for decades, actually. But eventually something will happen and that wall's no longer there. And when it falls, it doesn't just crack. It's completely gone. And then you get to reevaluate your life and what you're doing. This is not a place that you want to be. We got to figure out what to do before we get to that place. So maybe it's informal groups, sitting around talking things out. Maybe it's a formal session, actually sitting down and talking to a counselor. I know everybody just went, holy crap, this guy's talked to the counselor. I have. Everybody should. There is no difference between mental health and there is physical health. If you have something wrong with your foot, you go to a doctor or a podiatrist, whatever. When you have something wrong, you go to a specialist. If you have trouble coping, if you need help, you go see a counselor. There's no difference. So again, I want to start the conversation. We've got to think about this differently. I received some great information, some great help. So things that helped me reassess where I was, build new plans, come up with new actions. It's put me on a different path. Now I have a couple of degrees. I'm in an administrative position, and I'm in a position I can actually do some things that I've always wanted to do, and I think it's a great thing. But just because not everybody needs to hit rock bottom to build a foundation. We need to learn how to build a foundation before we ever get there and take care of our people. Again, there's no one single correct answer for everybody. There's different for everybody. It's different for anybody that walks in the room, but we have to figure out what that is. So, effectiveness of support programs. The same study came back and said, well, no encouragement, no support. Well, 56% suicide contemplation rate is absolutely insane. That's ridiculous. But with peer support, we drop it. That's just not being the old fart in the room, right? That's actually just trying to help each other out, looking out for each other. Peer support, we can drop these numbers. Peer and management support, and you almost cut it in half. You talk about full support and encouragement, as far as support, counseling, whatever that looks like, we're drastically cutting the contemplations and the attempts in half. Well, it's more than half, right? A third. So we've got to do something. We have got to do something together. We have to come together and figure out what that answer looks like and fix this. Effectiveness of formal support, again, 47% said it was very helpful. 16% was extremely helpful. So, you know, by the numbers, that's well over half find that actually if there's some type of a formal support available to them. And I'll be honest, every program, everybody here is going to say, well, yeah, we have the, the employee programs, EAP. We have EAP. EAP does not have a clue what we do as a living. The EAP is set up as a intervention method for everybody from the sanitation guys to the trash truck drivers to the people in the offices. And I'm not trying to take a shot at it. I'm just saying that we're just a little bit of a different animal. When people try to correlate us with every other municipal employee, they're clueless. It's obviously they don't have a clue. So EAP is, I don't believe, is the answer, because we have an automatic wall, a shut-off valve that shuts as soon as somebody says EAP. I'm not sure what that looks like, but again, we can find the answer together, and we can, if anything else, ID the fact that this is an issue, and we do need to talk about this. We do need to come up with solutions. And if you need help, if you're having trouble sleeping and you're not enjoying the things you once did, and your life is just not where you want it, it's okay to go find and look for resources to help you. That may just be some books to read, help you just reorganize, whatever that looks like. Just don't shut off the wall, right? So, what I'd like to say is it's time. It's time we realize we can't take care of others unless we take care of ourselves. That's just like, we knew that before, but we forgot to apply that to our entire career. We would take that by day, right? We would make sure we had the equipment we needed and everything else for the calls for that shift, but we forgot to apply that for the longevity of our careers. It's time to ensure that we actually have a retirement. There's a vast number of people in EMS that will never have a retirement because they're going to punch out and they're going to do something different, because it's too much. It's too much. We haven't given us for the pay and everything we do and all that fun stuff. We haven't put the appropriate safeguards. And it's like bowling, you know, when you're a kid, you get the rubber rails, keeps you from going into the gutter. We've got to do the same thing for our employees, our career path in general. We've got to have those safeties in place. It's time to take care of each other as well as take care of our patients. And, you know, we provide excellent patient care. We do our very best at every time to make those relationships happen, to reach out there, to go above and beyond, to grab the purse and turn the lights off and feed the cat, and all the stuff that we do that goes completely unnoticed just because that's how we would want somebody to take care of us. And that's why the public loves us. But at some point in time, we've got to be able to do that for each other too. When we see somebody struggling, we see some changes, hey, what can I do for you? How can we help? What does that look like? I don't know, but you will know when that happens. And the whole point of the conversation today is just so you're aware. Maybe you're looking, maybe you're watching, but don't be apprehensive about it. This is a part of life. We deal with it. It's time to invest in the health and longevity of our personnel. And I'm not taking a shot at any one entity here. I'm just taking a shot of our, actually the entire emergency medicine services. Again, we're not cannon fodder. We are people. We need to take care of ourselves. And we must be each other's champions for success. We have to watch out for each other. We absolutely have to watch out for others. When you start looking back, you'll notice times and places that, you know, the divorce rate. At one time, I was the only person at my station of 6 that was still married. Everybody had been divorced. The divorce rate is through the roof for firefighters and EMS personnel. I don't have the exact numbers. I did not look that up, but I want to say at one time it was over twice the national average. That's not okay. That's not okay. Our jobs are taking a toll on our lives and our family. And we need to reevaluate why we got in the job. I got in this job to make a difference, but I stayed in it because, well, honestly, I was providing for my family, right? And if the job is what's costing me my relationship with my family, my children, well, I need to reevaluate some things. We need to figure out how to make that healthy again. We need to figure out, I don't want everybody punching out. That's horrible, because we have some great providers there that just need assistance. And we need to be able to provide that assistance. There's a list of my references. Again, my goal today is not to come up with all the answers, because that would be impossible in 30 minutes. and definitely impossible as a one-man show. So my goal today was really, let's start a conversation, let's get out there and let's talk about this, let's think about what we're doing. Let's revisit why we started this whole thing originally. Turn off. Yep. Why did we get to EMS? Well, I think we have some incredible opportunities ahead of us. I'm right now teaching a basic academy for some new recruits, and I've told them multiple times that you have a God-given opportunity to make the greatest difference in people's lives. They are there at the very, very worst time, a lot of times. And what you say, what you do, how you handle yourself, they will remember. It will be burnt in their memory forever. And that is an awesome responsibility, and we can't take that lightly. So we have been given this huge gift, but we also have to take care of ourselves so we can properly take advantage of that gift and make that difference that we wanted to make in the beginning. I understand, different calls and you get burnt out the third transfer of the day, or you go to pick somebody up for the 15th time. I'm saying take a minute, realize what's in front of you. Sometimes, yeah, EMS abuse, it wears us all out. But take that opportunity to talk to the little old lady. How are you doing? Is there anything we can do for you? That's what sets us apart from everybody else, those personal relationships. That's what sets this area apart, our ability to care for one another, just Southwest Missouri in general. So, anyway, that's what I have today. I appreciate your time. If you like any information or have any questions, I'm going to provide my contact information with Mr. Prosser, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, everybody, it's lunchtime, so I have about 10 minutes till noon. So we're going to need to recharge some batteries and reset some things, so let's certainly take an hour. We'll see how things go on our end, and if we need more than an hour, I'll let everyone know. But let's plan on about 1 o'clock to resume some streaming of some live content. Then we'll have some off-the-shelf content for later today. And if you haven't done so, don't forget to do your reading assignments. I have those on there for a reason. That will save a little bit of time doing this sort of thing, and it's all being counted towards your CE hour. So as I checked yesterday, I only had a few, so if you haven't done so, please remember to do that. Actually, we'll add some next week when we're basically off for the Guardians, so there'll be a few reading assignments next week while a lot of us are going to be at the Guardians thing, and then we'll resume on that week 2 weeks from now to finish up some things and get this all wrapped up. Thank you. See you in about an hour.